What's up guys, welcome back for another YgoPro Duel video. Next match, Cross-Banlist Cup. Last match here in Group B, we have H.A.T, Hands, Artifacts and Trap Tricks from 2014 versus, I think, the most recent deck here in this year's Cross-Banlist Cup being two Dracos. Definitely a powerhouse and a title candidate, right? The first list we see here is of course H.A.T, Hands, Artifacts, Trap Tricks from 2014. The winning deck list from the North American World Championship qualifier by Corey McDuffie. A super solid list, one of the best formats I think ever in this game's history, since it felt quite balanced, quite slow, you know, with the hands, the artifacts as well, the trap tricks of course, you know, it's very grindy. Compared to this list, so much shenanigans here in this list, with just flat out pure true Draco's post masterpiece. I mean, nothing really I can say, right, with all of these floodgates, very solid against most lists, but if you take a look at H.A.T, cards like Rivalry or, you know, the Monarchs Europe don't really do much, okay? They can be a hindrance or a small hinder to the deck, but, you know, the hands can do a lot against true Dracos, especially during the damage step, right? Then again, if I'm looking at the H.A.T deck list, the H.A.T deck list is also running kinda dead cards against true Draco. I'm looking at Compulse, Maxi for example, so both these decks, both main decks, do run like dead cards against each other. So which deck has the advantage? Before this matchup I would definitely have said, well, True Dracos is definitely winning this 3-0, right? Before playing any of these games, comparing the deck lists, right, purely based on the deck lists and power creep, etc. I definitely would have said that True Dracos would win this one 3-0. But yeah, the games still need to be played. Well, they have been played, but let's move on to the first duel of the match, right? Best out of 5. As you know, this is a Yugioh Percy, Yugioh Pro Percy, so there's no option to open the game with the 6th card, so that's why, you know, the other deck goes first and then just passes. So I believe, yeah, indeed, H.A.T goes first. The opening hand was okay. As you know, the hands are very important here in this matchup. During the damage step, prevents the True Draco card or monsters from activating their effects, and of course the field spell is just free fodder for Ice Hand to be destroyed, and they can just, you know, just search another Fire Hand and then end with Ice Hand as well. And against a deck like True Dracos, leaving a hand face up on the field definitely gives my opponent like a lot of trouble to get rid of it without triggering it, right? I'm going for the soul charge because of the Pot of the Economy. Pot of the Economy prevents me from going to the battle phase, you know, at the start of main phase 1 that is, so I actually opt to go Dweller as well, knowing that I believe all of my back rows don't really do much. Here, I was in a losing position even after I made Dweller earlier, but that Fire Hand top deck definitely very delicious. That leaves me into crashing into my opponent's monster, and I do opt to go for Laval Chain to, you know, set up another Fire Hand here on the top of my deck, just because of the Typhoon here in hand. But I think it was fine as well to just leave both hands on my side of the field. Use Laval Chain's effect to put Murmelio from my deck to the top of my deck, and again, you know, the Fire Hand was at the top of my deck. He does top deck into Card of the Mice, a huge top deck, but luckily no monster, right? But I think I had the Torrential Tribute set, and both my other sets are pretty much dead cards, so useless against True. Yeah, Black Horn of Heaven doesn't really do anything, right? And the attack is halved of all of my monsters, but no, that's definitely not enough. So H.A.T takes this one, right? So again, number 2, yeah, indeed, he lets me start. So again, H.A.T going first. This is a decent opening hand. Well, Maxi is basically a dead card. Moral Tech in my hand. I probably should have set this one just in case of, you know, the True Draco spells popping my back row, and Moral Tech would just get a free pop. But yeah, he plays around this really well. Just not let Ice Hand trigger, get rid of the Heritage, I believe the name is, you know, eventually get a draw as well. You get rid of Ice Hand and go for some damage, and this was a mistake, a misplay on my part, using the Mystical Space Typhoon and thus triggering the Ignis Heat's effect to get a search. And now, well, I don't think it would have mattered too much. His opening hand was just too good. And yeah, my hand here with all of those dead cards doesn't really do much, right? Although an ice or fire hand could have gotten me out of this situation if it wasn't for the pot of duality, right? Like ice or fire hand right from the top of my deck would have started suicide or crashing into his monsters and then, you know, rip away his field because he had multiple spells or traps and multiple monsters on his side of the field. So one ice or fire hand would have gotten me back into the duel, but nope. Not this time, so I'm definitely not going to win this one. All of those free extra draws, the true King Draco field spell, yeah, diagram indeed, and getting those extra searches with Ignis Heat, with Maiden, I believe the name is, yeah, whatever, right? There is Dynamite Fighter as well, and if, yeah, that Mixie, that's Moral Tech, and that's definitely won't do much. A top deck Diania might be decent because of Excited Knight, but that doesn't really do much, right? Entering the scoop phase here. So game number 3 again, I let him start again if he goes first. He only has 5 cards and well, if he opens the mice, he does open the mice, it's fine. But let's not, well, this is a perfect setup for me. The hands, ice or fire hands can suicide crash into it. And as I mentioned before, the Monarchs, Erupt and Rivalry of Warlords don't really do much against this deck, especially if I see the hands, that is. The hands definitely get rid of his setup and I leave the true King field spell on the field, well, with the hands that is, and yeah, I'm honest, of course, the double mystical Space Typhoon definitely helped out as well. Okay, that's all fine. The second field spell is going to Typhoon again. Still have Ice Hand on my side of the field, so if the opponent wants to activate Raigeki or wants to attack over it, I can just trigger its effect to pop one of the sets, or you know, one of the spells, right? But again, Rivalry doesn't really do much. Okay, I can't summon Mermelio, and this is something I should have done previously. You know, just some extra attack power here on my side of the field with double Ice Hand. Use Pot of Duality to gain, or well, add in Dark Hole from the top of my deck to my hand. Again, get in for some damage, but his top decks aren't really that fantastic. True King's Return is a dead card. Raigeki is not useful. You know, both Ice Hands will just trigger. And popping both sets and leave me with double Fire Hand. And nope, the true, what is it called? I forgot the name, you know which one I mean. The trap here that halves like the attack. But nope, that's not going to cut it. So heads leading to 1. He lets me start game number 4, double upstart for some extra draws, and luckily the 6th card being the Fire Hand. So use Pot of Duality, flash the Ice Hand, and I'm like, well, let's do this cute trick, right? So get the Ice Hand from the top of my deck due to Duality from the top of my deck to my hand, and then just set a Fire Hand, right? So I had warning here, but I decided to just bank on the fact he would just attack into the expected Ice Hand, I guess, and he does. So triggering Fire Hand, Special Summon Ice Hand in defense position, and this is huge, using the Solemn Warning on the Maiden as well, and now I'm just in such a great position. Drop both Ice Hands indeed. Okay, he still has his True King field spell, it's fine though. Double Ice Hand on the field is definitely a big threat here for my opponent. He does pop the face down, bottomless trap hole, okay, that's cool. Maiden can just, well, eventually, I guess, will indeed attack over one of the Ice Hands. Maybe he can play around it and use like a double Tribute Summon, and then just use the second normal or Tribute Summon to set one of the true Draco monsters. That's definitely an option if they have a high enough defense or get the extra protection by the field spell, but well, yeah, that's definitely an option to just prevent your opponent from crashing those Ice or Fire Hands suicide, you know, to eventually use their effects, right? And yeah, True King's Return is definitely one of those strategies you can use against the hands. Just put your monster in defense position and kind of stall it out, but, well, I could just go for Excited Knight, try to blow up the entire field, and the artifact Sanctum. Yeah, Sanctum definitely good against the potential True King field spell. I can interrupt that play with Moral Tech, and yeah, both Diania and Mermelio will gain in or will attack for some nice damage. Set the useless, yeah, both Trap Tricks, Nightmare Trapple, and the top decks on True Dracos behave are not fantastic. And now I can just attack with both monsters and the disrespect, and the game with Gaga Cowboy. So I'm honest, the true Draco not really drawing that fantastic. I believe it was in game 2 where the opening hand was just flat out very solid, you know, using multiple juking spells or traps to play around the hands and making sure that either fire or ice hand trigger, or just attack over them and don't let them trigger their effects, right? But the hands were definitely very, very clutch here in this matchup, and as you see, we have 3 decks with 7 points, but well, I think that's the first time I've ever experienced this in a Cross-Banlist Cup series, but let's see. It's not that hard. We take a look at the matches and the amount of games they, of course, won, so that's all 7, and lost. Then we see that True Draco will be ending up first place, since True Draco only lost 4 games for duels in total here in Group B, so True Dracos will be placed first, and then the second list will be Mermail Atlanteans, because they had both Mermail Atlanteans and the matchup with H.A.T. Mermail Atlanteans won that match. That was the second match here in this year's Cross-Banlist Cup, was won by Mermail Atlanteans with 3 points over H.A.T. the 2 points. So that's why Mermail Atlanteans is put above H.A.T. So yeah, very solid match, good match. Personally, not something I expected, but that's how it is, right? That's what I like about the Cross-Banlist Cup series. So yeah, next matchup, let me double check. Again, like always, feel free to leave your predictions. Here in Group C, we have ABCs, also one of those title candidates, versus Chaos from 2003. So 13 years of difference between both these decks. So again, like always, feel free to leave your predictions in a comment or the top right corner in the I symbol. Okay, guys, that's it. Thanks for watching, and feel free to leave a comment or a like if you enjoyed the video. Lithium signing out. Peace.